Alright, we are going to go through step by step, looking at the different channels of what happens during an action potential. Okay, at resting state, that is our first state, okay? Nothing has happened yet. We are floating along here at negative 70 millivolts, okay? That is being maintained by the sodium-potassium pumps and the electrochemical equilibrium between the negatively charged proteins inside the cell and the ions, sodium, potassium, chlorine, um, inside and outside the cell. Okay? So negative 70, nothing's going on. What happens is, during our first step, step 1 here, depolarization, we lose this negative charge and it becomes positive. Okay? So that's going to be this part of the graph. Okay? So we're going to say resting state is state 0. Here's depolarization 1. What happens is the sodium channels open, and that allows sodium to go into the cell. So I'm opening these channels, and sodium is going into the cell. Okay, that is happening in step 1. Okay, step 2 is repolarization. Okay, during step 2, the sodium channels remain open, but another little piece of protein comes in there and it blocks sodium from entering. Okay, and this is called deactivated. So it's deactivated channel. It's open, but it's deactivated. Okay, so sodium stops rushing in. Potassium channels open, and potassium flows out of the cell. Potassium is flowing out of these channels. Okay, if you're losing positive charge, that's going to cause everything to be negative, right? Okay, so we go all the way down back to negative 70. Repolarization. Okay, what happens in hyperpolarization is, rather than stopping there at negative 70 where we were comfortable before, potassium overshoots the resting potential. Okay, the sodium channels close, so this inactivated gene moves out of the way, but the channel itself closes. Potassium overshoots, so it goes below negative 70. That is hyperpolarization. Hyper. It's below negative 70. Step 3. Okay, but we're close to negative 70, but we still need to get our ions back where they're supposed to be. So in order to do that, these potassium channels have to close. And then our sodium-potassium pumps restore us back to negative 70. And our ions are in their appropriate relative concentrations. And then we get back to our resting state. Okay? That all happened, I only mess with these two channels here. Alright? So what happens is, after this the depolarization of this section causes the next section to depolarize. Okay? So when this section is in depolarization, this section is in hyperpolarization, and that prevents the stimulus from going backwards. It can only go in one direction. Okay? And then as that depolarization causes the next set of channels to depolarize, okay, while this one is going through repolarization and hyperpolarization, and this one is restored back to resting state. Okay? So the potassium channels have two positions, open and closed. That's it. In the resting state, they're closed. In depolarization, they're closed. In repolarization and hyperpolarization, they're open. And then in recovery, they close again. The sodium channels have three options. They can be open and inactivated, or they can be closed. The resting state, they're closed. Depolarization, they're open. Repolarization, they're inactivated. Hyperpolarization, they're closed. Recovery, they're closed. So those are the different channels letting in the different concentrations of sodium and potassium, or letting out. That prevents the cycle, the repolarization, hyperpolarization, prevents the stimulus from going backwards. And so you have unidirectional stimuli down the axon. And we have our relative voltages. So at rest, we're at -70. When we go through depolarization, it goes upwards close to 30 millivolts positive. Repolarization, we go back down, we overshoot -70, so anything below -70 would be hyperpolarization. And then the sodium potassium pumps restore it back.